Hey, I'm Sarah, and this is the Goddess in Training podcast. This isn't about being perfect or polished or having it all figured out. This is about what happens when you actually start listening to your body, your intuition, your patterns, your truth. I'm asking big questions and having real conversations, sometimes messy and sometimes magical, with people who've lived through it, grown through it, and still don't have all the answers. If you've ever doubted yourself, betrayed your gut, or wondered if you're the only one, you're not. Let's talk about it. Hi, welcome back to Goddess in Training. I'm your host, Sarah, and today we're diving into one of my favorite topics, how intuition actually works in real time, in our bodies, our lives, and in the sky above us. My guest is astrologer, author, energy healer, and interfaith Reverend Shellie Enteen, who I first met on Substack, like so many luminous women in my world these days. Shellie has spent decades studying astrology, working with energy medicine, and listening to the unseen realms, from Celtic stone circles and waterfall portals in the Blue Ridge to the quiet, insistent voice of guidance over her left shoulder. In this conversation, we explore the difference between mental analysis and what Shellie calls the zap of knowing, those true downloads that arrive fully formed and change the course of your life. We talk about destiny and free will, anchor moments on the web of life, and how her own downloads led her to channel a Druid priestess trilogy connected to her ancestral line. We also zoom way out to look at where we are right now, cosmically and collectively. The rough initiations of Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, what we're learning as we move into a 1 year in 2026, and how to navigate constant change without losing yourself, and why it's more important than ever to stay rooted in your own inner knowing, especially in the age of AI, deepfakes, and accelerating timelines. If you've been feeling overloaded with insight, sensing big shifts, or wondering how to trust your intuition in the midst of so much noise, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome back to another episode of Goddess in Training. I'm your host, Sarah, and today I am here with my new friend, Shellie Enteen, who I met on Substack. Like so many luminous women that I've met in that space, I am an astrology baby, and I try to learn as much as I can, but I feel like my brain has some resistance to all of the minutia of astrology. And so I'm so excited to dig in with Shellie right now, because I think I'm in this awakening about how the planets and everything around us is influencing us on a major level, but also in little tiny ways in our life too. So Shellie, I'm so excited to talk to you.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. And Substack, you're right, it's a great place to find interesting people.
Yeah, so many soul sisters I've met there. So tell me how you have gotten to this place where you are right now. That's a big question. How did astrology first enter into your life, I guess, is
Okay.
an easier
Well,
question.
I did actually get on Substack originally because I wanted to tell the strange story of my life. I didn't have a plan, would be the name of it or something. But I had been living in England. I was engaged to somebody and it didn't work out. This is like in early 1970s. And I decided that I would come back to New York City, which is where I grew up. And I got a job in a PR firm. And this is like, middle of the 70s. And all the account executives were women, very unusual to begin with. There were 2 males that owned it and was one of the biggest in New York City. And the first day I showed up, I was going to be an administrative assistant for a woman contemporary of my age. And there was a chart wheel on my desk. And I had been interested in sun signs and things like that. I had been interested in astrology. And I'm looking at it and I can kind of tell what the signs are, really, some of them. And I looked over at her and I said, what does it mean? And she said, well, I'm just starting and I just learned how to set up charts. Speak about charts. We had to do logarithms, intense math to put charts together before computers. There were no computers at one point in our history. And so she said that she was learning that, but there was somebody who could tell me, and she was another account exec. And if I took her to lunch, she would tell me. So what happens was I have my chart and I'm asking her, how did you see that? How did you know that? How did you? Which isn't what people typically do when you're doing a reading. I found out, having done many of them. They just want to know. And so she said, look, you have this and you have that, and I'm taking you to a bookstore. And it just so happened that one of the two occult, we used to call this occult or hidden knowledge, bookstores was in walking distance from our office. She bought me my first book in astrology, and I found myself getting up early, which is not me, to read it before I went into work, and then somebody got me a teacher. It's not really that easy to learn it as fast as some people feel that they can learn it now. Everybody's an instant something, But I spent a couple of years with him, going almost once a week, and he was brilliant. And then I was ready. So that's how it happened to me, not because I was looking for it. It was not popular. And I didn't tell a lot of people because they would right away, want to know where my pointy hat was. And I was a witch. But I was very lucky. My family was always accepting it. And even my Baptist family from the South, I have a Southern mother and a Northern father, wanted readings.
Wow.
So I was born with my moon conjunction Uranus, which is the planet of Aquarius, in Gemini, in my house of career, right above my head. So it's a natural, because this art and science of astrology is Aquarian. It is ruled by Uranus because it's unseen energy that's affecting us.
What an amazing story in terms of just being in the right place at the right time, or perhaps it's not coincidence. That's where you were meant to be. That is your path. As you've been walking this path, what other times in your life have you just known that something big is unfolding for you?
Well, I have had moments when I knew that I was going to have to make a change, a shift, like when I moved up here. I didn't expect to be moving to South Carolina, foothills. I was living in Southeast Florida, and I thought I would go to Sedona or Santa Fe or someplace like that. I loved it out there. But it wasn't tracking. And I came up here to visit a friend who had moved up here. And it wasn't the first visit because it was cold winter. And I didn't like cold. I was in Florida for a long time. But the second time I came up, we took a little road trip to see some other people. One of the first things I had done was go to a waterfall. And that waterfall, it just communicated within me, you are moving here. And I was like, okay. And I had done a vision board for what I wanted a home to look like. And I'm sitting in my vision board.
Wow.
That's a time.
Wow.
Yes.
I've talked with so many people who live here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and I recently moved here a year and a half ago. And I keep running into people who just reflect, here, I'm newly here, and I'm not quite sure why I'm here. There's something about these mountains and the water, so many waterfalls,
Yes.
and that just has some power that is kind of bringing people together in an amazing way.
It's the oldest mountain range on the planet, and it used to connect up into, I think, Scotland or something, if you look at the maps. And I'm very connected to the UK also, with DNA from Wales, England, and Scotland, and quite a lot of Irish. But I don't resonate as much to the Irish, even though it's a quarter of me. I have always been focused in that place, and maybe that's one of the reasons it it's really does connect in the mountain level to
That
be
makes me
here.
think about Stonehenge, which I have visited. We have very similar lineage in England and Scotland. And you said you live there, so I assume you've been to Stonehenge. Can you talk a little bit about that place and how its connection to astrology?
The time that I lived there wasn't when I went to the stone circles. It was a medical student, and we went to pubs. That was that was the England. I worked in advertising and public relations in London. So it was when a cosmic egg got cracked, when the astrology came in after I got back. But I did go back and I do visit frequently. I personally am not attracted to visit Stonehenge. I think it has to do with a past life because I did study evolutionary astrology with Jeff Green, and he did agree that there was a discussion about that. He was a very unusual and brilliant man, and he could see lives looking
Mm.
at you. So it sort of puts me off, and I know that I've heard that it has a resonance with Mars. But the stone circle I went to two others, and the first one was the Rollright ring, which was also given to my friend and I when we took the trip to England, 97, by a stranger on a train. That's how I got the assignment to do the Druid priestess life trilogy also. Strangers
Wow.
on Trains in England has a ton of magical mystery for me, not when I was living there. But so we got a couple of connects magically, and we went to Rollright. And that's on what they call the old road to Stratford from Oxford, between Oxford and Stratford in England. And it is a full circle.
Mm.
And I felt the energy there. I immediately felt that it was Beltane, that I saw the young girls with the hair filled with flower wreaths, and it just felt so good. It was something very positive. Whereas when I would think of Stonehenge, I did drive past it with the medical student once. He said, look back, anyway, that was before. That was when it was just a field with cows walking around it. But the one that really did a number on me, and is my favorite of all, is Avebury, Avebury, in the West Country. And it is the biggest stone circle. It has, in its day, it would have had two full, huge stone circles that crossed each other. And it has a path of stones to, process for the ceremonies to come in on that. But my friend and I got there near sunset. We were going to stay at a B&B in Avebury. So we were getting in after going up to the Rollright ring and then coming down. So I had to see Dr. Bach, the Bach flower remedies. I practiced that also.
Oh, wow.
I had to go to his place, which was beautiful, peaceful. And then we got there and there was nobody else, which is very rare at Avebury. And now it's wide open, everybody tourists. We made I made the big mistake of touching every stone. It was like I was a kid in a candy store. And then I couldn't sleep. I didn't realize it had something to do with that yet, because I didn't know that the stones were libraries. They had so many functions, the stone circles. And as opposed to astrology, it would have been finding the time of year and the time of day, because, the Stonehenge is so famous for coming at midsummer and midwinter with some light coming in through the stones. But there was always shadows and light on those stones.
Mhm.
So they had a very important, but knowledge is stored in stone and bone because the crystalline structure is there.
Mm.
Some of these are carrying healing. And I have a favorite now. And I just learned recently that to me, it's a she, that she is also a portal. Because the first time I put my both hands on and I started to feel like my body was going to lift out. So I dropped it, So if you've seen Outlander, which isn't a big issue for me, but was on these are all these like little web things, right? But it was
Right.
the only thing I could watch going home. I saw the scene where she goes to the standing stone, and when she puts both of her hands on it is when she goes back in time.
Mm.
And so I went, oh, that's what just, I felt that exactly what they were showing. So, but I don't believe you can go back and forth to the same time. I don't think it's like you get uh, I wouldn't, I wouldn't try this at home. Stay away from that. Um, but so anyway, then also energetic medicine actually healed me from the insomnia, which I tried
Mm.
everything for when I got home. And then a guy came from Sedona with a didgeridoo. And when he went up my back, he got to the ridge of my skull, and I could feel and see thoughts leaving. I
Wow.
overloaded my hard drive. Yes, so don't do that. I'm here to tell you, go to the one that calls you, because there are specific messages that you can pick up. And that is very Aquarian. Also, it's the unseen,
Mhm.
And maybe it's one of the reasons that they gave Saturn, which is the structure, Capricorn, rulership of Aquarius before they found Uranus,
Mm.
because Aquarian energy was in the stones. Aquarian energy was available through that Saturnian, stony, cold, hard.
Mm. You mentioned downloads, and so many people that I'm encountering today are receiving downloads and calling them different things, but I think it's all the same thing. We're all receiving information. And sometimes, at least for me, it feels like it is at a high rate, that it's too much, that it takes effort and intention to process those downloads. Something else that I've been kind of wrestling with a little bit is the role of intuition and downloads, and how do you advise, and how have you in your own life discerned what is a download and what is true and what is just of this world?
I never thought about that until I thought you were going to ask me about that. So the difference is a download is knowing. We can come to conclusions, we can look at information, we can analyze them. That's Mercury. And that's why they gave it to also Virgo as well as Gemini, because Virgo is going to analyze and put things in order and see if it can be perfect, right? So Mercury rules both Gemini and Virgo. But a zap of knowing is like a zap of no. I know.
Mm.
And after you might use Mercury to sort of say, well, how do I process this? How do I apply this? What does it mean for me? Why did they tell me this? They being whatever. I mean, there are guides also. And I think they probably come under that, now that I think of it with my Mercury. They probably come under that sign also. And it's angelic pouring, of this prana chi knowledge comes on light, is what carries information. So, I mean, I have had the experience of hearing a guide, and it's interesting because it was a male voice and it was coming over my left shoulder, and it was not saying lots of stuff. It just said, now. Like when I got this card about how much I could get for my condo in Florida, the
Mhm.
voice yelled at me because I could procrastinate on this. I'm a Sagittarius. I could get involved in a million other things. But, if you suddenly hear something, right, then it's not, you're not going to be guessing about it. So I think the downloads are an unheard voice that's
Mhm.
coming in. And it's usually, in my life experience, if I hear it, I've only heard it like maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. And it was really important, don't just let her know it. And that in the Bible, I'm a public speaker and I'm an Interfaith Reverend. And I was speaking at a small Unity church, and I decided to do a topic on, guidance. And I decided, well, I should get a quote from the Christian point of view, because unity is still pretty in the Christian realm, right? So Isaiah has a passage, and it says that he's constantly guided in knowing by a voice that comes from over his left shoulder.
Wow.
I mean, I get those too. I get those like, wow, wow. So how do you know you're getting downloaded? You can get inspired to do something you never thought you'd want to do. And it just you must, like I was with astrology. I mean, they put me in the right environment. And I do think, astrologers are always asked, do you believe in destiny or free will? And I say both, because there is this, the Native Americans talk about it. I just put that in my latest Substack about finding purpose. The web that's woven in life, and that we're just walking on the web until we come to the intersection with something or someone. And so in the web of life, we can get drawn to the right place for the meeting of a person, and then, anything, a situation, anything. So that is a destiny. And when I look back, it was totally, like I say, it was never on the plan of life. I mean, for a young woman growing up who'd been brought up in the 50s and early 60s, the only game I was supposed to play was find a husband. And so I studied art history and English literature in college. And I did find a wealthy guy, but, there were other reasons that I was engaged to him. Also, my life had to do every single thing it did in order for me to become who I am. And that is true for everyone. I didn't have it in my mind. So we can be led in a download just of a thing I think I want to do.
I've heard it also described as anchor moments that, we are walking and doing and acting in our free will, but these anchor moments are going to happen no matter what. And sometimes, as you explained with being on the train and meeting someone, sometimes it's a person. That had me thinking about, so I think you said the idea of your book came to you from this encounter on the train. Yeah.
Yes. Well,
So I
this
was,
is, may I speak of it or?
yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Of
okay.
course.
I never was interested in my Celtic background. So I believed the PR that the Roman Church gave us about these evil pagans. So I wasn't interested. I did read a lot of Arthur. I saw films about Arthur. I probably maybe read almost all of them up to a certain point, and I enjoyed them. I never thought they were truths. I didn't think they were history, but an awful lot of people did because they kept looking for him. They claimed him and they looked for him. And so, but I was, no. So getting on this train, and there's only one seat that I can get on now, going back from Glastonbury to London. After I had come out to meet somebody there in Glastonbury, I was studying evolutionary astrology in London at the time, which is past lives. So it has that aspect. This cheery little woman is sitting there chit-chatting with the fellows that are across from her. You have those trains in England where there are benches that you sit on, cushioned. And then there's a wooden table in the middle. So I'm like watching her speak to the others. And I take the seat on the aisle. And the minute I took my journal out to try to journal what had just happened, she turned her attention to me. She didn't know a thing about me. And when I'm traveling and I'm casually dressed and stuff, I don't look that unusual. I mean, I wasn't wearing like crystal earrings and I wasn't doing that. So she just started asking me, were you coming from Glastonbury? And I said, yes. She said, well, what did you see? And so I just started telling her. And the last place I went was, and I was having a lark. It was so much fun. That weekend was just fun. And the last place they took me was supposed to be Camelot. It's called Cadbury Castle or Castle, if you're over there. The minute And I had been in a school of light work meditation for years. So I was very sensitive to energy already. So I'm seeing this slope to go up to this place, and I just keep feeling that not even close to here. And I really had no reason to think about that either, because again, I didn't think it was true. I mean, I knew somebody at the second time I went to the Abbey in Glastonbury had revealed the fact that they did not have Arthur and Guinevere's bones there. They dug it up and it was cow bones. That made sense because the cathedral building time was a time when you had to get pilgrims to come to town and spend money. And they would get points for visiting different places if they couldn't go to Jerusalem. I mean, it was really this whole history of the Roman Church is very fascinating.
Wow.
So they claimed that they had Arthur and Guinevere. They didn't have a saint, so they had them, but they didn't. And so that was in my mind, though, and my thought, and I didn't want to say anything to the three others because we were having such fun, and I didn't want to say, there isn't a way he was here at all. Nothing was here except a building, and not a very big one either. But so I mentioned this to her, and she says, no, dear, Arthur wasn't in England. He was in Wales. Caerleon was his Camelot. This is 1990, and Wales? Like, where's that? Like, it was so veiled. People never thought of Wales. Caerleon? What's that? So she started talking to me and asked me, did you read the Mists of Avalon, which is a big Bible for a lot of neo-Druids? And I said, of course. And I had, like right away in the beginning, I thought we were going to have a discussion about this and the goddess and everything. And she said, well, that went a long way to humanizing the character of Morgan Le Fay. And then she started going like this. Someday, someone is going to write a book about Nimue, and then the truth will be told. So I'd read stories with Nimue, and she was evil. So in my mind, I'm thinking, and she doesn't know I'm a writer. She doesn't know anything about me. Literally, this is the conversation. And I said, who would want to spend that kind of time with this character? Because she young girl seduces Merlin, gets his knowledge, traps him so he can never get out of this wind tunnel or the crystal cave or whatever. And so she's picking this up, obviously. So she says, well, you should go to Caerleon because there's a pub where Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote The Lady of Shalott. And I was listening to Lorena McKennett's album where she sang that poem, and it was my favorite song. She didn't know this, but that was the hook. And I was coming back in December and going back out to Glastonbury. And it was going to be my birthday. And I said to my friends in Glastonbury, can we spend my birthday in Caerleon? And I have to go to this pub. So if you know the concept of hologram, which is also the unseen realm, which is everything that ever happened is still happening, it wasn't the pub itself. That was just the hook. But walking around the town, meeting a professor who was telling us a lot of, it was magic, seeing the fortress, which was huge. It had an amphitheater. And later, when I was researching things, because I couldn't research, this was Dark Age. The Druids left nothing because they knew it would be distorted. So we don't know. But I could look at things in culture and things like that. So I did find out that part of Wales had one of the largest fortresses the Romans put in during their occupation. And they were there for the mining, for the minerals and the tin. That's why they wanted it. Also, the area, southeast Wales, had a tribe. It was all tribes. There weren't even like kings at that point. There were war chiefs, right? And the Silures, Silures, were the major warriors of the whole area. Okay. So that Arthur would come from that area. And then I found out when I was doing the writing, I was very careful because, I didn't want to be an imposter. I didn't want to be saying things that were impossible, that would never happen. It was, so that's why I had to research afterwards, but I would faithfully write what she said. And I found out that the word Pendragon. Everybody thinks he's Arthur Pendragon, like that's his last name. That's his surname from the Pendragon family. Uther was supposed to be his father, Uther Pendragon. Uther means the most fearsome, most horrible of anything. And then Pen is of the, and Dragon is the warrior. So that is a designation for the most powerful war chief, the one you don't want to meet in battle. It's not a last name.
Wow.
So I learned a tremendous amount doing the research, and the fact that it made sense, though. But the way he is portrayed is completely different. His battles are nothing, and they can't find the battlegrounds, even with the ground penetrating radar. So that download, I was taking it on faith. And she started out by, just saying, I am Nimue, or so the storytellers call me, when they're not calling me Vivienne or Lady of the Lake. And then she goes on to say what was true and how, she was trapped more than Merlin was in her portrayal as Nimue, But now it was time that they could speak now. They couldn't speak until fairly recently because we are opening now. And I asked why. And I heard that the fabric of the church is ripped and it can never be as strong again. And this was 2013. And a couple of days after that, the Pope had to resign. So it's like I was always going to do this. And I had somebody do a reading of Ancestor for me. And I found out that this is an ancestral lineage for me also. So her story is in my blood and bone, which is why me? Why pick me? And when this woman did the reading, and this was like last summer, not this one, but the one before, there was only one message that Anwen had for me. And the message was, we always knew you would be the one to do this for us. So then I knew I was probably living at that time also. Because if the whole group that you meet in the novels always knew that I was the one, because they knew. They were like the seers, the great seer prophets, and they were very connected to everything. And they saw that there were cycles, earth cycle timing, like we just talked about the age of Aquarius. And so they knew that they were just going to have to, like the Native American medicine men, they were just going to have to surrender this. And they didn't know why they would be doing this, but they knew it was going to be really bad because they were going to take the divine feminine out. And that's why we're where we are today, because we stopped honoring both. And the Celts were equal. Women were equal to men. You look at this Epstein stuff that's going on now, well, all of them would be dead in a Celtic society, because if you forced yourself on a woman, it was a death penalty.
Yeah. Wow.
So, it's time for us to remember, reawaken. That flash of knowing is us reawakening to truths that were kept away from us.
Talk more about the time that we're in right now. 2025 is concluding, and that's a 9-year, correct? And we're entering into 2026, which is a 1-year.
Yes.
Talk about that and what we've experienced this year and what people might be able to expect coming into 2026.
Well, this has been a really rough time, right? And the rough time that, as I see it, it was exacerbated by Saturn going into Pisces and then being joined with Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, right? So it's very strong in that sign, which is, that's the fish swimming in opposite directions, Pisces. So you have the agony and the ecstasy. So you either are going into high-level spiritual, creative visioning with the fish swimming up, or you're in the kind of deception, escapist behaviors. And we've certainly seen a lot of that. All we needed was Neptune. But now Saturn went in, and this is like our structures that we rely upon. Saturn, the bones in our body. Saturn, you can't move. The muscles that wouldn't work if there wasn't bone to attach to and keep them where they would. But dissolving is quality. Water, all water can dissolve things, right? And so this was happening for almost all segments, almost everywhere in the world. It doesn't just happen in our country. And what you will also look at when you're looking at Pisces is victims.
Mm.
Jeff Green used to say that the Virgo Pisces axis was sadomasochism. I understand that now, but, and either can be either on that. But, you know, and having to feel better than someone else by taking the right side.
Mm.
I mean, so the division potential was also huge. And, you know, the divide and conquer is, you know, and united we stand, divided we fall is in our Constitution. So false news. And, well, you know, I will say I've had experiences knowing that we weren't always being told everything, because I did date a guy whose father was a producer, network news. And, you know, he told me something happened and I said, no, it didn't. I didn't see it on the news. So he enlightened me about that. But, you know, this is a whole other level. It's like there's alternate realities. It's like a fantasy world. And, you know, this is that. So that has been such a long haul. And if you had planets in your chart that were in the other mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or even Pisces, you are going to really feel it. I mean, because we do feel any of the aspects that are happening more if it's actually impacting the energy in our own chart. So this is, you know, this has just been a long haul. And we're about to, it's actually this coming week that Saturn goes direct on Thanksgiving Day. And it, you know, it won't go back into Aries. I'll tell you, it's next year that it gets into Aries on the February. And so it will be different lessons because Saturn is the karmic teacher. And karma is good and bad. I mean, Saturn will reward you if you've done the work. And you've put the time in, the rewards come. So that's the good karma. But if you don't, then you're repeating mistakes, you know. So that's when it gets like really kind of difficult with Saturn. But Neptune will also absolutely go into Aries before Saturn gets to meet it. We finally have the exact conjunction in Aries. Now, what does this mean? This means we've got a little bit of direct motion where we can pick ourselves up and start to process all of that, what I just told you. And what did I learn from this? How did it change me? Did it give me more strength in some areas, or did it clobber me and I'm done? You know, and so until it gets into Aries, we have that ability to take the karmic lesson. And one of the things I know I learned was to wait before I reacted. You cannot avoid the initial response. That is just how that happens. But what you do with it, that's where you have your free will. So if you're going to be knee-jerk, which, you know, you could probably say a lot of the population isn't thinking this way. So they're just going to have the knee-jerk response. And they're also going to have the very important root chakra, Saturn, need to survive. So one of those things is community, you know, their families. I saw a Psychology Today magazine some years ago talking about team mentality. And so you have to be rooting for the same team in order to be accepted. So people will just respond to that need without doing their own critical thinking, right?
Yeah.
So I learned to do more critical thinking for my own knee-jerk response to whatever it is that activates me in whatever sector of life. And I think that was a very wonderful thing to learn. You know, you don't create more karma if you're standing steady and you're reaching for the most benevolent way to be in this situation, the most benevolent outcome for your interaction instead of going against something. And I learned to let go of old memories, the stories. In fact, I had another one come up this morning and I went, yeah, you didn't let go of that one yet. And that was my intention. And that's what I did. But it's not the way we were taught. So it's something that we're having to learn, releasing the energy, the identities of those stories, and releasing the people to be who they had to be. It was their life to be this. So, yeah, I think it's really been it's always growth with Saturn, but it isn't always fun. Jupiter gives us fun.
When does Jupiter energy come back in, Shellie?
Well, Jupiter energy is now retrograding in Cancer. One of the things that it did, though, was it expanded the feelings of Cancer, which is a need to feel secure emotionally and materially. So we're in that still. So we're going to cross over this line. And the lessons are going to be in Aries, which is where Chiron has been, also the centaur that is trying to teach us how to be positive Aries quality, which is very important to be courageous, to be an individual, to be open to new and invent, to take journeys to see other things. And, it's a positive thing. And leadership, accepting leadership if you're going to do it right is also a very positive thing. So we're going to be seeing more about that and more about what happens if we choose war and conflict, or if we choose selfishness. I know I can see your mind is already putting the pieces into the map of, yes, that, and that, and that. Yes, we're not in the same situation as 2012 brought us into a new realm. It's called timeless time. So things are fast, happening fast. Change is constant. Like go on a website and all of a sudden it's not the same website and it doesn't work the way it's constant. Get a new cell phone, they've got a new version, and we don't process that fast.
Yeah.
So, the beginning is always going to be a little bit more tricky. Like I said, the beginning of the Aquarian age isn't going to be, hippie land and flowers, but it wants to go there. That's where it wants to go. So we can remember that when we look at how they're trying to pull us back. The minute we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, that was the end of patriarchy and hierarchical thought, paradigm shift. Those who are benefiting from the old paradigm are holding on. This is like it's sort of a natural processing that's going on, but that's not the future. So we don't know what the future is going to be because now we have AI and robots, all kinds of things like that. So we'll see what happens. But during the course of next year, we'll be with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and it is a number 1 year, which is Aries is the number 1 sign. And so we have new beginning potentials too. So what we should be looking at is how to really, again, not react, but take the time, take the Saturnian time and look at the illusion or the creative spiritual understanding as we start moving into the new projects. And Jupiter during that year will move into Leo. That will be actually more fun because Leo is, the sign of entertainment and self-expression and romance and stuff like that. So I think also we're going to be in the Chinese year of the fire horse. So this
we're leaving the snake, right?
Horse. Yeah, snake. We were in that snake year. Powerful. And we could have gotten incredible insights. And again, I think even the snake is a good teacher for not responding right away because that nature, instinctive, like you got a little too close to it. You had no idea it was even there, but it's going to get you, is what we often do. And in ourselves. So it was a hard teacher, though, I felt. And I think we're going to be galloping along. So we're going to have to learn with Saturn how not to gallop too fast into things, I think. And we're going to be looking at the change in the signs of the eclipses. So it's going to make a big difference in individual charts. Yeah. People should be having readings for 2026. They should. I
It
do them,
sounds like we
but
all should. When you do a reading, how much of it is giving people an understanding of where they are in this current moment, and how much of it is advice on how to move forward?
I would say for me, it's 50-50.
Yeah, yeah.
Because again, there is this situation and how we respond to it is our free will. I think one of the things about astrology is if you don't have intuitive or psychic, which is more Piscean ability, you have to have that to do a reading. Because if you look at anything, any aspects, any planet, any sign, there's a polarity of things that you can say. So how do you know what thing to say to the client?
Mhm.
How do you know? You're being told. This is what it means in this chart now. Yes. And this is what can be done.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think is really important for listeners to hear right now as we're entering into 2026?
Don't get chipped.
Chipped or chip?
Don't get chipped. Don't buy it. Don't buy it.
Oh, chipped? Like,
Yeah, more people are, yes. There
I
is
see.
absolutely actual told out their agenda. They're going to let AI do medicine, and stuff. But I mean, there are different ways that things are already in you, It doesn't have to be like you go in for surgery and you know that this happened. But the
Mm-hmm.
more you can keep connecting to your own inner reality of who you are, don't lose you. This is going to be also important. Aries is that, and Saturn is a lesson in Neptune. It could dissolve it. You may have to be less vocal or whatever. We don't know what's exactly coming our way. I mean, that is one thing. Prediction, as my teacher told me, is the lowest form of astrology. To say this is going to happen. And astrologers always find this out when we do elections. And
Yeah.
a lot of them are saying, this is proving that this one wins, and then it doesn't. Yeah. So again, we don't know destiny. We arrive at destiny. But while you're on your way, keep as much of your own individual self as you can and be with others who are also doing that, and also people who want to lift up into positive visioning and even doing ritualistic positive visioning, like with Reiki or, just affirmation. There's a prayer that was received by the Lucis Trust organization, which is the Great Invocation, which is just about asking for light and love and, the purpose to come and restore the plan. It isn't a denominational kind of thing. It's, those things they work. They work. You put out
They're
that
so
energy,
impactful.
it's carried.
Yeah, that's the main message that I've been hearing is connect, find community, uplift other people, and love.
That's it.
Shellie, thank you so
Yes.
much. This has been such an amazing conversation, and I feel like I could talk to you for many, many more hours. We're going to have to do a follow-up, I think maybe next year. I would love to
Well,
do that.
anytime you want to have a chat, I'll probably have something to say. Moon and
Yeah,
Gemini.
you just have so much wisdom. I'm trying to absorb everything I can from you. So thank you.
Well, thank you for feeling that way. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to Goddess in Training. I hope something in this episode stirred your knowing or softened your heart. If it spoke to you, share it with someone who needs it, or leave a review or comment to help others find us. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to hear more conversations like this, please consider supporting Goddess in Training on Patreon. For more tools and offerings to deepen your intuition practice, visit goddessintraining.online. You can also join the Scroll of Seshat on Substack for twice-weekly stories of how I followed my intuition. The music for Goddess in Training is Madre Ayahuasca by Arkawa, and you can find more of his music and the link to his website in the show notes. Remember, your intuition is not a mystery, it's a memory. Keep listening.
Resplandor del fuego, estrellita, tabaco santo, fuerza de rapel, soplo de luz, soplo encantado, viajecito, bendición del cielo, fortaleza, tigrecito de la